relates to each other. When you see one little problem here, you got to be prepared to know that there's probably something else going on around the corner. Specifically on that one. The second question you talked about was with the public in regards to politics and how do we respond to these types of attacks, and if there's going to be more attacks. There's going to be attacks every single day. There's nothing you can do about that part. So the problem though is that you got to make sure you're prepared to know that your data could be shared pretty easily. So you maybe should start thinking about what you're saying in your emails, putting in this information, responding a certain way. But at the same time, you need to make sure that you understand that you need to find a way to secure that information more effectively, and keeping all your information in the company as much as possible without going outside of that, because there's nothing you can control if someone takes over those other areas, especially if you have your own personal information. Those are usually the easiest targets to get access to.
So the public sector should do the prevention right now?
So the public sector, in regards to, I work specifically with the public sector, and what I'm noticing is that they are a little bit behind in the security side. The good news is that we've already learned a lot of mistakes from the bad guys and from the people who spend a lot of money. What we found out, again, that we've talked about, you don't have to spend a lot of money to do some basic security aspects of it. You need to put some things in place, some technology, some alerts, some tripping points in each of the key areas so you get notified so you know how to respond effectively. So right now I'm helping with a lot of cities and counties and the government in general to figure out exactly how you can maintain that information to keep our information and keep the cost down at the same time, because the government has no money. They spend a lot of money, but they don't use it effectively. But they don't usually like to spend it in the security side. So yeah, we're seeing a huge increase right now for all the public side to start building up their infrastructure now, and also building the security side as well. You're welcome. There was another question? Do you want to bring his question? Yes.
You're talking about working in the public sector, and I'm kind of curious because they have a lot of antiquated hardware specifically. So how do you design your software or your sensing or any of your threat detection in order to deal with legacy systems?
Perfect. Good question. Basically, if you heard it, basically with the public side, a lot of their infrastructure is outdated, and how can you basically create a security infrastructure that's going to be effective with those outdated devices? One of the things that we do is right away is we analyze their infrastructure, finding out if they have some basic things. You need to have some basic areas to protect. If you have a firewall, you have some IDS, you have certain functions to kind of help the perimeter. You have the one piece you have on that piece. You have some endpoints to kind of get some information from endpoints. That allows you to get some information. A lot of times their infrastructure already has some of these things in place. If they don't, then they need to have at least a couple of those layers that they have to get the information from it. What we then do is basically put in a tool that just collects the logs and then analyze that information and then compare it quickly with what they have. So we don't have to actually sell them any new hardware. We're just going to pull the information from what they currently have and start with what they have. And then from there, they can start building a plan. They get new visibility into their environment. Then we can put a plan together and say, okay, now let's go ahead and fill in this other gap right here. You don't have anything for your endpoint. You don't have anything for your malware. You have certain pieces. Now you can kind of start filling in the gaps to gain more knowledge or increase your visibility into your environment depending on how large they are. So you always start small with the main things, the firewall, the IDS, IPS, the perimeters, things that necessary. You grab that information and you start from there. And then depending on the situation, if they're not even, sometimes we've seen they're not even moving to a next generation firewall, which means it actually has an IDS and IPS. It's just a stateful inspection firewall. Okay, then there needs to be some updates that you have to do. But overall, we can kind of pull that information from that as well. Thank you. Yes?
Just to compliment what you said, and the gentleman up front made a great point, is we all know that anybody in this room, any human, any one person is not necessarily going to follow the instructions, right? So what you're saying is the detection, early detection and all that is so critical when it is, and remediation very, very quickly. The part we talked about too was the separation of duties. This word compliments, right? Because you're trying to minimize the damage that any one person can do based upon the policies that are in place, and separating out the system administrative functions would say you have access to this data. The policy that says you only have access to this data, and the security that says based upon your level, you have access to this. So over 50% of the breaches are insiders, which means you have to minimize it. And the compliment part is that you detect and remediate that as quickly as possible. So when we say that there's not one solution, it's so true, and there's complementary services and capabilities out there to minimize the destruction of data, to minimize the cost of breach. So just wanted to compliment you in terms of how else that comes into play.
And kind of add on to that, he's talking about segmentation. One of the things you want to do within your own environment is how to segment the data, because if you get attacked and you get infected with one area, how do you prevent it from getting an infection on another area? So segmenting that information is very effective. Identity access management, encryption, there's so many different tools that you can do. If you have the funds, you should start looking at adding these pieces. Sometimes I'm working with a lot of the public, they don't have a public sector, they don't have the funds yet for these. So we start small, and then we start putting in a plan to start putting in these other pieces to get more information. The more information, the quicker you can respond to these types of attacks. Early warning, the problem is if you only have an early warning for one piece, now you have a whole 7 areas of information, but you only have one that's right in the middle. That means you're going to have a cost by the time we actually get to that point. So we want to slowly keep adding more and more. And so, exactly, there's so many different pieces to it. We can figure out how it all works together. Yeah.
One thing about early warning, and that is people forget we're networks and networks. The network-centric operation type mindset, thousands of computers are connected together. What we don't have is instantaneous sharing. If there's a new attack that someone discovers, they know about it. Nobody else does. There is no system out there where if I find I just got broken in by this type, I need to be able to scream that to all of my connected nodes so they instantaneously know this happened. They can either start checking themselves or implement defenses against that attack. It's this, you pick them off one at a time philosophy. And they'll just work their way down the food chain. Unless we start sharing on an ongoing, real-time basis, we're always going to, they'll pick you here, they'll pick you there. You've got to have the rapid response to everybody, this transparency that if I get stuck here, everybody across the United States now knows this, shields are up.
Yep.
And if we don't do that, it's always going to be lurking somewhere there, someone connects back on, it gets reloaded.
Did everybody hear what he said? No. He was talking specifically about sharing information. Once an attack actually happens, we need to find a way to share that information quickly to other people so they can use that information to block any future attacks at the same time. And then be able to put in a plan where it says if we know the specific attack, why not lock it down pretty quickly? And the hard part is, how do you do that with thousands and thousands, millions of different divisions of computers and companies, and to share that quickly. And so that's kind of what we focus on as well, is sometimes you can't do this yourself, so you can either go through a partner, and we have 4,100 clients, and we actually have that exact same plan. We actually share that intelligence quickly, and if we get an attack by one of them, because we're going to most likely use some type of new technology that gets attacked on, we quickly analyze that, we protect it, we detect it, analyze it, we then create signatures or behavioral analysis information, and we quickly share it across all 4,100 of our clients. That way we can quickly respond to it, because that's the intelligence piece. If you can't share that intelligence quickly, you're not going to be effective. And so what's going on right now is everybody's doing their own intelligence, grabbing their own information. So we need to find ways to do more sharing to share that information as well. So we can do that quickly for our clients, but we got to find a way to do that more all over with all clients. Yes, sorry.
That information sharing exists in certain parts of the industry. So my company is in the aviation space, and we're part of the Aviation ISAC, which is the Information Sharing and Analysis Center. So those groups do exist if your company is a part of it. So it's putting in the research and the effort to make sure that you want to join those groups and having the resources to share that. So that is a deficiency that some companies might not be able to afford to join these groups. But to say that there's no sharing whatsoever, that's not true.
Yeah, we didn't say no sharing, but yes, there are actually groups out there today. There's almost every industry has their their ISAC. There's MS ISAC for public, there's healthcare ISAC, there's aviation ISAC, there's pretty much all the different ones out there. So that way you can at least, depending on what industry you go into, you can actually get information directly from your ISAC, and a lot of times they provide it for free. So you can get quick, easy access to that. And if you don't have the free access, then you have the ability to pay from services like what we do as well, We do work closely with the Healthcare ISAC, and we're trying to work with the MS ISAC, so we're in the process of doing more. We do work with the FBI and the other pieces, but most of our information we design, it can't be shared, because if the bad guys know that we have this information, then they'll change everything. So we got to be careful what kind of information we share. But if we share at least within our own company and protect our clients, then we're at least doing that. But if we just share it with anybody, we don't know where that information is going to go to. So that's why it's a little tough to share information quickly. Most information sharing that we're doing right now are the stuff that's already known. And that's the problem with the sharing pieces of it. And how do we do that effectively? Because he was saying with true known attacks, when they happen, and then share it without the bad guys knowing we have it, so we can block everything, that's the issue we have to figure out. You had a question too.
That was it.
Was that it? Okay.
Can you talk about like Dell's specialties? Like what exactly is like a specialty for Dell?
So what's the question?
Dell's specialties?
Dell's different solutions?
Right, solutions. So like answering machines, typical like troubleshooting, I guess.
Yeah, so the nice thing about Dell is that they have a full technology, Dell technology. They have the hardware, the software, they have the security services that don't sell any hardware at all. So the nice thing is, and we've tried to keep everything as open as possible, so we can actually make sure that our technologies work in conjunction with any other technologies, because that's one of the biggest things you want to make sure you do. In regards to, you need to start looking at identity access management. You need,
So like, I mean, like, for me personally, just experiences-wise, like, connecting different brands to, like, other brands, and, like, it's like, you know, like, brands, basically, like, a lot of, I know it's like, I saw it at, like, Home Depot up there, and then I went to Target together, and then there was, like, a different, I'm sure there's, like, more exponential growth into, like, different companies, different people working, corresponding together to form like brand new names, I guess. So like Dell's, I see is like a constant, exponential, like constant testing result methods, forming, like staying with Dell to Dell, and like I see that how.
yeah. Now, the nice thing that I'm always getting in trouble, because the nice thing is I'm vendor neutral. So even though you can really have any product that you work with, and we work in conjunction with it, but in regards to Dell in general, the nice thing about the Dell is they pretty much own almost different solutions now. You can actually keep it all within Dell if you want to. But if you already have other solutions that don't work or that aren't Dell, we're finding ways to make sure they're all working together. And that's one of the things when you do buy new technology, you need to find out that, make sure that it actually works in conjunction with other technologies, so that way the brand name needs to almost disappear, and it really needs to become, do they work together effectively? And do I have the team, the people to manage it more effectively? Do I have the time, and do I have the intelligence necessary to maintain that?
I hear what you're saying, like hardware, software, and stuff. What do you think about Dell's closure at the Santa Ana Mall location?
I don't know what that.
Yeah, they closed. Like,
Is it selling Dell products, you mean, or?
yeah, there's like the monitor and
Okay.
software.
Yeah, that's a whole nother division of Dell. But you can buy it pretty much online or anywhere else too. So
So
Yeah.
we'll take one more question because we're kind of running a little bit behind schedule.
sorry.
So I will take one more question and then we'll take a 5-minute break. And if you have any questions for the speaker, this is a great discussion. I feel bad interrupting it. Feel free to speak to him then. Okay. So we'll take one more question.
How do you approach companies who factor cost into implementing security and kind of weigh out whether a breach is worth the investment in security?
That's a great question. One of the problems that we know right away when someone comes up and says, I've been breached, the question really comes down to, was it a true breach or was it just an infection and it was just a commodity type of infection? And then, how do you spend the money where it makes sense? And the part we need to make sure is we need to figure out how you can do some quarantine and analysis yourself to get some good information, and then decide when it makes sense to actually go to a third party to actually get some analysis going on. You need to make sure you have some technology skills in-house as well as finding out the right partners. And then from there, it almost decides what makes the most sense to add certain technology based on your specific needs. A lot of times I say is rather than spending more technology, find out how you can improve what you currently have. But if you're getting a constant malware attack, okay, now you need to maybe look at a specific malware solution that's going to give you more analysis on that information compared to just a virus scanning type of solution. So technologies are always designed to basically fill in the gaps where you need to, but really it needs to fill out is, do you have the time to manage it? Because you don't want to buy new technology that you can't manage yourself. And that's the biggest part. And that's why there's all these services that kind of add on to it. You got to find a way that you can actually maintain and manage it yourself. Did I hit that question right? Yeah. Okay. I can talk to you afterward if you're interested. Thank you. I appreciate your time. And thank you.